But look, you don't need to agree with his opinions. It's a free country. You have the right to talk back to him or anybody else. But when you try to stifle scientific progress because you hate a candidate, you're not the good guys. Maybe it should be you that we're launching into space.
That was exactly the sharp response Fox News host Greg Gutfeld gave to California officials for rejecting Elon Musk's SpaceX launch from Vandenberg. And I believe it should also be given to the Space Force for their unwise actions in protecting their contractor, SpaceX. Find out everything in today's TechMap episode. Staying in America, while NASA accelerates its space exploration activities, most notably the $5 billion Europa Clipper mission on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket that launched on October 14th, SpaceX is also not less insane. Elon Musk's rocket company is literally going to transform space travel over the October 13th weekend. He launched the largest and most powerful rocket in history, which is twice the size of the shuttle, and can carry 3 times the payload. However, doing liftoff the mega rocket is what SpaceX has done in previous test flights, and what makes this test flight so special is the breaking of human limitations in spaceflight. Yeah, a 71-meter tall super heavy booster then could land right where they took off from. Everything was completed with absolute accuracy. This is exactly extraordinary feat never done before. This achievement has marked a big bang in human space exploration. Even a major national agency like NASA, with 66 years of operation, seems to have never dreamed of it. Yes, testing such technologies is too risky and expensive for NASA, especially since they are struggling with the budget cut from Congress, bureaucracy, and the persistent consequences of cost-plus contracts. It's safe to say that no government could pull it off, but the California Coastal Commission, a state agency within the California Natural Resources Agency, is putting hurdles to more expansion of SpaceX over naked political reasons. As a matter of course, SpaceX, on October 15th, filed a suit against the California Coastal Commission over egregiously and unlawfully overreaching its authority and engaging in naked political discrimination. The tension stems from plans by SpaceX to launch 50 rockets per year from Vandenberg Space Force Base next year that have been nixed by the state's Coastal Commission. To carry out the plan smoothly, SpaceX is asking for an order that would declare the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch program federal agency activity. That means the state agency could not regulate it through its permit process. Instead, the commission must reach an agreement with the military, known as a Federal Consistency Plan, to regulate the impacts of rocket launches on the coast and wildlife. In response, commissioners argued that SpaceX was primarily a private company and should therefore obtain a permit itself, which is called Coastal Development Permit, or CDP. Their given reason is that 80% to 87% of SpaceX's rocket launches are not carrying U.S. government payloads, but satellites for one of Musk's other private companies, Starlink. But in fact, according to the analysis from Alex, a physics engineer who keeps up with SpaceX news, SpaceX doesn't need to apply for a CDP because the U.S. Space Force has rightfully declared that the increase of SpaceX launches from Vandenberg is a federal matter of national security. Now, the Commission realizes that if it votes in favor of the consistency certification of the U.S. Space Force, it would be impossible to then find a plausible environmental reason to deny SpaceX a CDP that's based on the exact same parameters as the U.S. Space Force's consistency certification. Therefore, they have already made up their mind that they would reject the consistency certification of the U.S. Space Force, then forcing SpaceX to come before the Commission to apply for CDP, and finally denying them. Oh my God, this is exactly a classic example of red tape in government, isn't this? That is exactly the problem. The Biden-Harris administration absolutely could override the California Coastal Commission, but they are doing everything they can to damage SpaceX, Elon Musk replied angrily to Alex's post. This is why SpaceX has filed a federal lawsuit against the Commission to seek an order that would bar the Commission from regulating its rocket launch program at Vandenberg, Alex said. So do you agree that this is exactly the political bias of California officials? Please comment yes if you agree. And guess who has endorsed the California officials? U.S. Space Force initially showed toughness against the Commission's unreasonable demands regarding environmental safeguards and monitoring at Vandenberg for the increased number of SpaceX launches. Ridiculously, they have recently seemed to reverse their stance, agreeing to all Commission requests to increase monitoring and to set up an interagency working group that includes U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Federal Aviation Administration to address concerns as the number of launches increases. Of course, we have no idea what led the plot twist from the Space Force, but we acknowledge that that would pave the way for further action by the Commission against Elon Musk and SpaceX. And faced with this act of putting a knife to its neck, SpaceX was forced to act to save itself. Obviously, this would also be a self-inflicted stab in the neck action of the Space Force. Bear in mind that SpaceX is exactly one of the most important contractors at Vandenberg Space Force, and even for the military programs in general. If SpaceX gets delayed, the national critical missions to get grounded. SpaceX's key role in this location is characterized by several significant military contracts, such as a $150 million contract to launch Space Development Agency satellites, or launches under the National Security Space Launch (NSSL) Phase 2 program. And to keep up with a surge in demand for launches under NSSL-2, in July, the U.S. Space Force increased its contract with SpaceX by $661 million, bringing the total value to approximately $4 billion. In the future, the Space Force will buy more Falcon Heavy launches from SpaceX. In the eyes of the military and the U.S. government's spy satellite agency, the Falcon Heavy, alongside ULA's Vulcan, is a replacement for the retired Delta IV Heavy rocket, which has conducted top-secret surveillance missions into religious orbit for more than 2 decades. For a long time, the masculine rocket has become the favorite choice for military missions. The Falcon Heavy is one of the most powerful operational rockets, capable of lifting large payloads into various orbits. This capability is crucial for military missions that often require deploying multiple satellites or large spacecraft simultaneously. For example, the USSF-67 mission successfully launched a military communications satellite, along with 5 smaller payloads, demonstrating its capacity to handle complex missions. With a base launch cost of just $90 million, Falcon Heavy can launch that cargo for just a fraction of the price United Launch Alliance charges for the service. Atlas V starts at $109 million, whereas the company's other type of rocket, the Delta IV Heavy, costs upwards of $350 million a launch, limiting its use to government customers. Even ULA's low-cost Vulcan Centaur has a price tag of around $100 or $200 million. The low cost stems from the reusability of first-stage boosters, which can return to Earth and be refurbished for future launches. This reusability not only reduces costs, but also increases the frequency of available launches, allowing for rapid deployment of military assets as needed. Last but not least, the Falcon Heavy incorporates advanced technology that can support various military applications, including experimental missions like those conducted by the X-37B spaceplane. These missions often involve testing new technologies and conducting research that contributes to national defense capabilities. In the satellite field, SpaceX also demonstrates its big contribution to security missions by providing and funding Starlink services to Ukraine largely on its own. It's where Starlink demonstrated it could operate in a combat zone and proved to be more resilient than the U.S. military would have expected from a commercial system. However, for Elon Musk, Starlink needs to be a civilian network, not a participant in combat. That's where a military version of its Starlink satellites called Starshield comes in. Starshield is also capitalizing on SpaceX's participation in the U.S. Space Force's Space Development Agency's Missile Tracking and Missile Detection constellation, where it partnered with Leidos to develop 4 classified infrared sensor satellites scheduled to launch before the end of the year. When mentioning the cooperation between SpaceX and the Pentagon, can't help but mention the intention of the U.S. Department of Defense to inquire about using Starship on its own, flying the massive rocket as a government-owned, government-operated asset on sensitive and potentially dangerous missions. Currently, the DoD contracts SpaceX as a launch services provider. In this new proposed arrangement, the Pentagon would actually take control of the vehicle on its own. This promises a future where the military's power will be enhanced multiple times once this gigantic vehicle comes to life, and they can explore all of its functions. Obviously, to get there, SpaceX needs to have sustainable financial resources to pay the expensive bill for the Starship's development. One of the best ways to earn enough money is through lucrative government contracts using Falcon Heavy rockets and launching Starlink. Those who oppose Elon Musk understand exactly that, including California officials, and this leads to their current actions. It has no doubt that the Pentagon does not want any political movements to impact its strategies. So once again, its actions this time must be more clever than ever. The California Coastal Commission seems to be sure to lose in the battle with SpaceX's CEO Elon Musk. SpaceX's important role in the U.S. rocket industry and Donald Trump's ability to win the race to the White House has forced the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and the Space Force to reverse their stance to back Elon Musk. For those living under a rock, the U.S. Space Force previously agreed to all of the Commission's demands regarding environmental safeguards and monitoring at Vandenberg for the increased number of SpaceX launches. Among of that is to set up an interagency working group that includes U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Federal Aviation Administration to address concerns as the number of launches increases. This is obviously not good for SpaceX's operation in this place. But on October 18th, we have already seen its new action regarding awarding SpaceX $733.6 million in the form of 2 National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Lane 1 launch service task orders. SpaceX and ULA were eligible to compete for those launches, and SpaceX won them all. More importantly, all of these national security launches would take place from Vandenberg, where the California Coastal Commission recently rejected SpaceX's plan to launch 50 missions there. Well, you can understand this as a protectionist move by the Space Force towards SpaceX at Vandenberg. The Space Force will do whatever they damned well please if they're launching national security missions. Elon Musk, on the same day, expressed his commitment to the tasked missions. We look forward to serving the Space Force DoD. Following Space Force, the governor of California also showed his supportive opinion of Elon Musk in the fight against the California Coastal Commission. I'm with Elon. The Golden State governor, a Democrat, said that in an interview late Thursday after campaigning for Vice President Kamala Harris in the battleground state of North Carolina. I didn't like that. While commissioners cited Elon's support for former President Donald Trump to attack SpaceX, the Democrat, Gavin Newsom, highly estimated the fairness. I'm with Elon. I didn't like that. Look, I'm not helping the legal case. You can't introduce that level of politics, Newsom said, signaling support for Musk's lawsuit. He criticized the commission for focusing on Musk's political activities instead of the permit's merits. On Tuesday, October 15th, SpaceX's lawsuit claimed the California Coastal Commission engaged in naked political discrimination during a recent debate on whether to allow SpaceX to increase rocket launches from 36 to 50 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. The lawsuit said commissioners overstepped their limits by considering Musk's political leanings, violating his First Amendment right to free speech in the process. These are friends of mine, good commissioners, but you've got to call balls and strikes. And trust me, I'm not a big Elon Musk fan right now, but this is about fairness, Newsom added. Friendly reminder that Elon Musk and Gavin Newsom don't have a good relationship in the first place. Both were in the war of words earlier this year when Governor Newsom signed a bill barring teachers from notifying parents that their kids identified as transgender. Musk called it the final straw, forcing him to move X and SpaceX's headquarters from California to Texas. Given Musk's move, the California Democrat governor fired back at Musk, tweeting that he bent the knee to Trump. In addition, Newsom has sparred with Musk on X over a bill the governor signed banning political deepfakes. Musk responded to a measure outlawing AI-generated content before the November election by referring to Newsom as an evil comic character. The Joker is in charge, Musk wrote on X, repeating the insult in an interview. Commenting on Newsom's change of heart, Elon Musk replied with his grateful, "Well, thanks, I appreciate that the space community is also not less excited." Aw man, Gavin knows now that Kamala has no chance. Preservation instincts kicking in. Gavin desperately needs the jobs and tax dollars this would create. It has nothing to do with fairness. This is Gavin distancing himself from Kamala. Democrat damage control. Gavin sees the writing on the wall. Trump will win and he needs Elon's business. On the other hand, someone showed his doubt. Don't get too excited. There must be some ulterior motive. Can't trust Newscom. So how about you? Do you believe in the sincerity of Governor of California, Gavin Newsom? Feel free to let me and others know in the comments section. Elon Musk's lawsuit, filed on October 15th in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California and posted online by Reuters, names the Coastal Commission and its board members as defendants, alleging that the entity egregiously and unlawfully overreached its authority and engaged in naked political discrimination against Musk. Rarely has a government agency made so clear that it was exceeding its authorized mandate to punish a company for the political views and statements of its largest shareholder and CEO. The lawsuit read in part, SpaceX, through its Space Force and Air Force partners, petitioned the Commission to increase the annual number of permitted Falcon 9 rocket launches from 36 to 50. The Commission, whose authority includes regulating environmental risks to the coastline, on October 10th, thanked the Space Force and Air Force representatives for their efforts, but argued that SpaceX should have been the entity to reach out directly. And then, Commissioner Gretchen Newsom, no relation to Gavin Newsom, read a prepared statement explaining why she was a no vote. Newsom cited a pattern of negligence at SpaceX that has led to hundreds of workplace injuries and a more dangerous workplace as part of her justification. She blasted Musk for relocating business operations from California to Texas due to his bigoted beliefs against California's safeguards and protections of our transgender community. From there, Newsom accused Musk of hopping around the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA, and defrauding hurricane victims with his offer of allegedly free Starlink satellite service that actually costs $120 a month after 30 days.
We are talking about SpaceX in this, and I will say, and I just want to put it out there, as a person in this process, as was mentioned earlier today, we're an appointed body. There's the politics and policy and science. They mix in these spaces. It's real.
Right now, Elon Musk is hopping about the country, spewing and tweeting political falsehoods and attacking FEMA while claiming his desire to help the hurricane victims with free Starlink access to the internet.
A sick ploy to gain customers who are facing tremendous burdens and dire straits, she said. Incredibly inappropriate. What I post on this platform has nothing to do with a coastal commission in California. SpaceX's CEO wrote, the Coastal Commission has one job: take care of the California coast. It is illegal for them to make decisions based on what they, mostly wrongly, think are my politics. For example, I have done more to advance sustainable energy and help the environment than maybe anyone ever, which is not exactly a far-right position. Yet here they are shamelessly breaking the law. They should resign immediately and face the appropriate legal consequences for their actions, he added. Facing criticism over its initial offer, SpaceX announced on October 12th that it would now provide free Starlink service through the end of the year for both new and existing customers in hurricane-impacted zones. In addition to the news from California and Space Force, Happy Friday also marks another good news, with the launches of 20 Starlink small sats, including 13 direct-to-cell. At 7:13 p.m. ET, Falcon 9 launched 20 Starlink Group 8 19 satellites, including 13 with direct cell capabilities, to low Earth orbit from Space Launch Complex 40, SLC-40, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The Falcon 9's first stage came back to Earth about 8.5 minutes after liftoff as planned. Landing on the SpaceX drone ship just read the instructions in the Atlantic Ocean. The Falcon 9's upper stage, meanwhile, continued hauling the Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. It will deploy them there about 64 minutes after liftoff if all goes to plan. This is the 17th flight for the first stage booster, Booster B-1076, which last launched on October 18th and has seen 17 successful launches and landings. The booster first launched the CRS-26 mission. Supporting this mission, which previously launched O3b mPOWER, OneWeb 2, Intelsat 40E, Maxar 2, Turksat 6A, Eutelsat 36X, Ovzon 3, CRS-26, and now 9 Starlink missions. The new batch will join the huge and ever-growing Starlink Mega Constellation, which currently consists of more than 6,400 active spacecraft, according to astrophysicist and satellite tracker Jonathan McDowell. About 230 of those satellites are direct-to-cell craft. SpaceX has launched 96 Falcon 9 missions so far in 2024, two-thirds of them dedicated to building out the Starlink network. The company has also launched 2 Falcon Heavy missions and 3 test flights of its Starship mega rocket this year. When mentioning the western United States, can't help but mention California, a beautiful state with sun, sand, surf, and mountains. With nearly 39 million residents across an area of 423,970 square kilometers, it is the most populous U.S. state, the third largest by area, and the most populated subnational entity in North America. California is very well known as the largest economy of any U.S. state, which is home to Silicon Valley, the most Fortune 500 companies in the U.S., and especially the headquarters of Elon Musk's 2 biggest companies, Tesla and SpaceX. As the world's top billionaire, Elon chooses this beautiful state to live and run his companies, thereby contributing significantly to the growth here. Elon's footprint in California is shown obviously as his top-notch rocket company. SpaceX has directly revived LA County Aerospace. The aerospace industry was pioneered in LA County, with the first rockets set off in the Arroyo Seco near Caltech in the 1930s. The humble origins of the great things coming later embracing the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a first leader in rocket and satellite development, and later in interplanetary spacecraft, as well as the other pillar companies such as Douglas Aircraft, Lockheed, and Northrop. The massive defense spending cuts after the collapse of the Soviet Union devastated the industry, dropping employment in the county from about 130,000 in 1990 to less than half that a decade later. And SpaceX has strongly developed and built on the remaining heritages. In another tweet, Elon said Boeing and Lockheed moved their rocket production from California to Alabama. SpaceX took over an abandoned aerospace building in LA County and turned it into the highest volume rocket producer in the world. Following SpaceX, the company's employees have founded more than 50 startups, contributing to taking the glory days back. These impressed Kevin Clouden, the Milken Institute's executive director of MI Finance. SpaceX has been one of the pillars of the new Southern California space economy. The move is symbolically significant in that it shows Southern California isn't indispensable in an industry where it clearly is a leader. SpaceX isn't unique, but it's the star, he added, highlighting the ecosystem that has sprung up around it. Musk co-founded Tesla in California. In 2004, he invested $30 million and joined Tesla as the chairman of its board of directors. In his recent tweet, he said that the arrival of Tesla transformed a derelict building that had been stripped of anything useful into the highest production car factory in the Americas. The mentioned car factory is the Tesla Fremont factory, an automobile manufacturing plant in Fremont, California, United States, operated by Tesla Inc. The factory originally opened as General Motors Fremont Assembly in 1962 and then was operated by New United Motor Manufacturing, Inc., NUMMI, a joint venture of GM and Toyota from 1984. In 2009, the joint venture ended when GM entered bankruptcy, and 1 year later Tesla bought the plant for the bargain price of $42 million for most of the site. And now the company has turned it into America's highest production car factory, with an output of nearly 560,000 vehicles, and employed over 20,000 people as of 2023. Tesla says the factory has the capacity to produce up to 100,000 Model S and X vehicles, and 550,000 Model 3 and Y vehicles annually. It's fascinating to witness how Elon Musk's electrical car company transformed what was once a shuttered facility into the highest production car factory in the Americas. It goes to show that with the right vision and innovation, even a derelict space can be turned into something game-changing for the industry and economy. So why is Elon Musk willing to spend so much money and effort? Talking about this, Elon said that his investments were done in spite of, not because of, the California government. It would be far lower cost to manufacture in other states, which is why our competitors moved out of state. The real reason is that he considers California his home. As you can see in those 3 tweets, he always emphasized the sentence, "That was because I lived in California." As a person who is obsessed with innovation, Elon Musk always wants to bring the best things to where he lives. This explains why, when he gradually shifted his attention to another state, Texas, it caused a wave of opposing reactions in both places. At the end of 2021, Tesla officially moved its headquarters to Texas from California. The shift was followed by the migration of the headquarters of SpaceX and X from California to Texas. This cited frustrations with California's regulatory environment and specific laws that he found objectionable, which he described as the final straw. Musk's move made Senator Scott Wiener, a California state senator, upset, and on X he responded, "California literally made you with taxpayer subsidies, and because it's the best place around." Will this be a fake temper tantrum move just like Tesla's fake move to Texas? Scott Wiener's tweet received more disapproval than approval when many blamed the progressive left policies that are killing California, forcing the largest Californian companies and employers to try to leave. As mentioned earlier, SpaceX and Tesla have provided a large amount of jobs in California. Thus, once they leave, a downturn in the job market is inevitable. According to the latest statistics, nearly all jobs that are being created in California are government jobs. Between January 2022 and June 2024, total California jobs grew by about 156,000, with government jobs accounting for 96.5% of that growth. California's job creation record has been even more dismal over the last 18 months. Since January 2023, private sector employment in the state declined by over 46,000 workers. California's private sector job collapse is unprecedented, and with the state representing nearly 12% of the country's population, it is a drag on the nation's economy. Part of California's job weakness reflects the number of people and businesses leaving the state. Well, the largest automotive, aerospace, software, networking, and semiconductor companies are trying to leave. Tesla, SpaceX, Oracle, Cisco, and Intel. You might not know it, but the latter 3 have been paying consultants large sums to figure out how to move out of CA, and concluded they are stuck. He added, by contrast, Texas is blooming because many of Musk's companies are making investments here, especially SpaceX. The rocket company has invested more than $3 billion over the last few years, with just $1 billion in outlays in Texas this past year. SpaceX, according to a report about Hawthorne's finances during the 2022 to 23 fiscal year, provides nearly 7,000 jobs, or about 16% of total employment, in the city. The second largest employer in the city, according to the report, was the Hawthorne School District, with 1,029 employees. The next is an Amazon fulfillment center in third place, with 606 employees. SpaceX has long been the largest employer in Hawthorne, at least dating back to the 2015 to 2016 fiscal year. Once SpaceX relocates its headquarters, including moving its entire facility and all employees to Texas, we are sure that number will grow dramatically. In addition, the billionaire has much more ambitious goals. Musk's move has accelerated Texas's emergence as a significant tech hub, particularly in cities like Austin, which is now dubbed Silicon Hills. The area has seen a surge in startups and tech companies, with over 5,500 businesses established in the greater Austin region. The city is emerging as a strong competitor to Silicon Valley for workers, as Austin's blend of tech, art, and unique culture has attracted many away from the more expensive San Francisco Bay Area. This will provide new training opportunities and foster a collaborative work environment, affecting the workforce in terms of job satisfaction, empowerment, and training opportunities. As a result, thousands of jobs in Texas will be created. As Musk's companies expand their operations, they will likely contribute significantly to local employment and economic activity. For California officials, to save the bad situation, they should focus on business employment and growth, even by companies led by people with political differences. As a lifelong Democrat, And as someone who has collaborated with you on legislative efforts, it pains me to see politicians be so petty. You should embrace business employment and growth, even by companies led by people with political differences. In what world is it okay for a political leader to taunt their business leaders like this? Steve Jurvetson wrote, "The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, has been the focus of criticism for some time now, due to its obsolescence and the red tape, both of which have prevented them from keeping up with the growing innovation in the aerospace sector. As the pioneer in the wave of space commercialization, it will not be unfathomable if SpaceX becomes the most vulnerable victim of the U.S. federal agency. Elon Musk has been quite vocal about the administration's attempts to marginalize his company, which has made him become Trump's biggest cheerleader. And of course, Democrats don't like that. Relations between SpaceX and the FAA came to a head when the FAA intentionally delayed Starship's fifth flight while continuously imposing financial penalties on the company for petty matters that had nothing to do with safety. This increasingly demonstrates that, in addition to failing in its management role, the agency also shows its serious shortcomings in distinguishing between space and politics. Their actions are now counterproductive to the space sector, which is developing more aggressively than the aviation sector, something even Congress can agree on. So what's the solution in this case? Yeah, getting them out of space. This is truly a hot topic that is given to the discussion between Ellie in space and Congressman Kevin Kiley. Kiley, during a Transportation Committee September hearing, pressed Whitaker on whether the FAA is placing undue scrutiny on SpaceX. He later sent a letter to FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker over his false claims about SpaceX during that hearing.
I think it's one of the reasons why we just need to get the FAA out of the picture. We're working on some legislation right now that will do that.
This stems from an April 23rd meeting where the FAA's Commercial Space Transportation Advisory Committee, COMSTAC, unanimously approved a recommendation that the FAA's Office of Commercial Space Transportation, or AST, be moved out of the FAA and turned into a standalone organization directly under the Secretary of Transportation. Apparently, that step of COMSTAC is in the bingo card of many people, not except me. Back to the history. The Office of Commercial Space Transportation was established in 1984 as a standalone office under the Secretary of Transportation. It was moved within the FAA in 1995 as part of a Reinventing Government initiative by the Clinton administration. The FAA initially was a good host for the office, but since the industry's demand significantly increased, the FAA has failed to keep up with the change, leading to their derailment. Can you imagine that by 2024, when the reusable rocket launch operation occurs much more frequently, leading the U.S. to the top of the world in this field, space still remains a low priority for the FAA? 0.35%. Yes, exactly. 0.35% is the percentage of the overall operating budget of the FAA that AST received. It is equivalent to $42 million. The AST workforce is a similar share of the overall agency as well. This stinginess of the U.S. federal agency reflects the low priority they place on space activities. So far, they keep their mind that space is not inherently the FAA's core business, which is just added to their portfolio because it also requires airspace for launches. No doubt they view space companies as a minority. Not only quantity, the quality is also a big deal. Not by chance do people call them bureaucrats, who like to work 9 to 5 at their own pace. It's in contrast to the crazy working pace at SpaceX. With a goal of continuous innovation and creativity, SpaceX has increased its flight rate exponentially, placing an exceptional burden on FAA staff, which requires them to work overtime and weekends. However, this overload didn't work, and in March, the agency had to request a large funding increase for the Commercial Space Office. The given number in its fiscal year 2025 budget proposal released March 11th is $57.13 million. That is a 36% increase from the $42.018 million AST received in the final fiscal year 2024 spending bill. A large portion of that increase, $7.9 million, would go towards hiring additional staff to support launch and re-entry licensing and oversight of those activities. AST expected to grow to 157 people by the end of 2024, but was looking for additional funding in 2025 to hire more staff. At this point, one wonders whether the FAA will utilize those resources effectively. We just know that instead of reducing the number of staff needed through lessening red tape, They have added the complexity of an already cumbersome bureaucracy that SpaceX complained about multiple times recently. Unfortunately, we continue to be stuck in a reality where it takes longer to do the government paperwork to license a rocket launch than it does to design and build the actual hardware. Worse yet, they are using their position of trust to engage in politically motivated behavior rather than focusing on safety. FAA Administrator Whitaker made several incorrect statements today regarding SpaceX. In fact, every statement he made to Congress was incorrect. It is deeply concerning that the administrator does not appear to have accurate information immediately available to him with respect to SpaceX licensing matters. SpaceX wrote, "Based on all of the above analysis, can we continue to have confidence in the FAA's ability to regulate space operations? Or should they withdraw from the commercial spaceflight field and devote all their resources to their core business, commercial aviation?" I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Feel free to leave a comment below. SpaceX's concerns regarding the FAA's process were stated to Congress for the first time last October. At a hearing on commercial space regulations last October, SpaceX executive William Gerstenmaier, the company's vice president for Build and Reliability, delivered the warning to the Senate Subcommittee on Space and Science. The remarks come as SpaceX was facing an environmental review by the Fish and Wildlife Service and a safety review by the FAA of plans to launch Starship Flight 2.
It's a shame when our hardware is ready to fly and we're not able to go fly because of regulations or re-review.
Noting that SpaceX has been ready for a month to launch the next Starship test flight.
Licensing, including environmental approval, often takes longer than rocket development. This should never happen, and it's only getting worse. An unnecessary bureaucracy that has nothing to do with public safety.
During the hearing, Gerstenmaier did recommend that the FAA double the staff in the licensing division of its Office of Commercial Space Transportation. In addition, the FAA should be given accelerated hiring authority to draw from the best pool of candidates. Staffing has been a big problem for the FAA for a while, the consequences of which were clearly evident in SpaceX's arduous 2-year journey to get its initial Starship launch license. 500 days is the total of time that the U.S. federal agency spent to review a single launch license application for Starship's maiden flight. As they said, that is the longest the agency has spent on a single launch license application. The FAA explained that extended time was due to the complexity of the application and the size of the vehicle, the largest ever to seek a commercial launch license. That created a strain on the resources available to the agency to both review that application and work on other license applications. Despite SpaceX's efforts to raise the alarm, the FAA's progress on resolving the issue has been slow. Clearly, it is an unacceptable thing. For nearly 2 years, SpaceX has voiced its concerns with the FAA's inability to keep pace with the commercial spaceflight industry. It is clear that the agency lacks the resources to timely review licensing materials, but also focuses its limited resources on areas unrelated to public safety. These distractions continue to directly threaten national priorities and undercut American industry's ability to innovate. There are about nearly 45,000 staff to oversee and manage the national airspace system in the FAA, 3 times SpaceX's workforce of about 13,000 employees. Okay, I know that the FAA's amount of work is very huge, as they are responsible for regulating all aspects of civil aviation in the U.S. However, despite tons of work and limited employees, the FAA still has enough resources to take care of little things on SpaceX's rocket that, are unrelated to public safety. It would be a time bomb for America, and Elon Musk pointed the finger at it directly. America is being smothered by ever larger mountains of irrational regulations from ever more new agencies that serve no purpose apart from the aggrandizement of bureaucrats. Jeff Bezos' aerospace company hoped to launch its uncrewed NS-27 mission at 9:27 a.m. EDT on Sunday, October 13th, to send a brand new New Shepard rocket capsule combo on a brief trip to suborbital space, but a GPS system issue forced the company to call off the attempt. The delay comes 6 days after Blue Origin's first NS-27 launch on October 7th was called off due to a rocket issue. No new launch date has been announced, but this mission was very important. NS-27 will mark the debut of the second human-rated New Shepard vehicle, which consists of a first stage known as Booster 5 and a crew capsule named RSS Kármán line. The Kármán line is the 62-mile-high boundary that many people regard as the start of outer space. The vehicle features technology upgrades to improve the vehicle's performance and reusability, an updated livery, and accommodations for payloads on the booster. No people will launch aboard NS-27, but the mission will fly 12 research payloads, 5 of them on the booster, and 7 inside the capsule. This gear includes new navigation systems developed for New Shepard and Blue Origin's huge New Glenn rocket, as well as 2 LiDAR, light detection and ranging, sensors designed to operate in the lunar environment, according to Blue Origin. As its name suggests, NS-27 will be the 27th New Shepard mission overall. 8 of the vehicle's 26 flights to date have been crewed, sending up to 6 people at a time on brief trips to the final frontier. Those 8 crewed flights have all used the same New Shepard vehicle, the Booster 4 RSS First Step Combo. This second human-rated spacecraft will enable expanded flight capacity to better meet growing customer demand. At this point, you might wonder, despite being the same beginning, why Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have had such different trajectories. The reasons for this bitter fact are revealed by BO's founder in a last December 2-hour interview about Amazon, Blue Origin, his business practices, and more with the computer scientist and podcaster Lex Fridman. During the interview, Bezos candidly acknowledged,
Blue Origin needs to be much faster, and it's one of the reasons that I left my role as the CEO of Amazon a couple of years ago.
He added that he wanted to come in, and Blue Origin needs him right now, adding some energy, some sense of urgency. They need to move much faster. Slowness partly comes from indecision, not daring to take risks and fail. It's safe to say that BO gets obsessed with getting things exactly right, which is reflected clearly through the logo, which is a feather that symbolizes the perfection of flight. Although the B-4 engine has the same thrust as Starship's Raptor 2, it is still not considered as powerful as the Raptor in general. This is due to the philosophy of living in a safe zone that BO has pursued all the time, meaning never testing the engine in its final frontier to reduce the risk of explosion as much as possible. The information surrounding the development of the New Glenn rocket is rarely shared with the public, because BO probably does not want to reveal its weaknesses. However, does this make sense anymore now that the world knows about their slowness? On the other hand, SpaceX is famously not afraid to fail. They also failed multiple times in their attempts to land the Falcon rocket many years ago, and the company narrowly went bankrupt in 2021. Starship's Raptor engines have been continuously pushed to the limitation in tests, leading to a series of explosions and, most seriously, the damage on OLM in April 2023 causing the 7-month holding up of Starship. Despite these obstacles, Elon Musk still upholds the spirit of never giving up. So far, Falcon 9 has broken many records in terms of total payload carried into orbit and number of booster reuses. Starship and its Raptor engine have undergone 5 orbital test flights and have undergone rapid improvements. SpaceX's reputation and success have also attracted large customers, such as the Pentagon, thereby winning lucrative contracts. Bezos also took the high road when talking about Musk. He said decisiveness is worth noting because it is one of the secrets to SpaceX's success. During technical meetings, Musk will make decisions and take responsibility for important issues. Once the ultimate decisions are given, the next up is just action. Honestly, there is no room for hesitation here.
Well, I don't really know Elon very well. I know his public persona, but I also know you can't know anyone by their public persona. It's impossible. I mean, you may think you do, but I guarantee you don't. So I don't really know. You know Elon way better than I do, Lex. But in terms of his judging by the results, he must be a very capable leader. There's no way you could have, Tesla and SpaceX without being a capable leader. It's impossible.
To be able to share these things frankly is not easy. To do that, he had to taste enough bitter fruit. Jeff's high ego caused him and Amazon's board of directors to be entangled in a lawsuit by the company's own shareholders last August. The Cleveland Bakers and Teamsters Pension Fund alleged that Amazon acted in bad faith, yielding to conflicts of interest, and as a result, overpaid for its launch contracts by hundreds of millions of dollars by refusing to work with SpaceX on Project Kuiper. This fact was made painfully obvious back in April 2022, when Amazon signed satellite launch contracts with everyone who is anyone in space, except SpaceX, the world's biggest rocket launch company and also also the cheapest to launch with. This is because Jeff Bezos has beef with Elon Musk. Afterwards, under pressure, Amazon had to change its decision. Back to SpaceX news, SpaceX's Crew 8 mission on the Dragon capsule Endeavour will remain in space due to unfavorable weather conditions at their splashdown zone. SpaceX's Crew 8 mission on the Dragon capsule Endeavour was scheduled to undock from the International Space Station early Sunday, October 13th, to begin the trip home for 4 astronauts. However, that plan was thwarted by poor weather conditions off the coast of Florida. As NASA's updates on October 16th, mission managers continue to monitor conditions as weather is expected to remain unfavorable for several days. The next weather briefing is planned for 11 a.m. EDT on Friday, October 18th. If weather conditions improve, NASA and SpaceX will target no earlier than 3:05 a.m. Sunday, October 20. For undocking from the space station. Crew 8 consists of NASA astronauts Matthew Dominic, Michael Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Alexander Grebenkin of Russia's space agency Roscosmos. The quartet launched atop a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket on March 3rd and arrived at the ISS 2 days later. Crew 8 was originally supposed to undock on October 7th, but Hurricane Milton pushed things back by nearly a week. The powerful storm roiled seas in the mission's potential splashdown zone, so NASA and SpaceX waited for Milton to pass before greenlighting Crew 8's homecoming. Crew 8 is the 8th operational long-duration ISS astronaut mission that SpaceX has flown for NASA. Its successor, Crew 9, arrived at the orbiting lab on September 29th. In addition, Crew 8, NASA's $5 billion Europa Clipper mission, also slipped from its original launch date of October 10th due to the Milton hurricane. But 4 days later, or on October 14th, the Europa Clipper probe atop SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket liftoff from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, KSC, in Florida. The mission kicked off a highly anticipated astrobiology mission to the Jupiter ocean moon Europa, and also marks the 11th overall for the Falcon Heavy and its second interplanetary mission. It was also the first Falcon Heavy launch to require the full expenditure of the vehicle's 3 first-stage boosters. Normally, the first-stage boosters for SpaceX's Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9 rockets reserve enough fuel to perform landing burns for recovery and reuse on future launches. The Europa Clipper mission is aimed at investigating Jupiter's icy moon Europa to determine if its subsurface environment could support life. Europa is believed to have a global ocean beneath its thick ice shell, and the mission will gather data on the moon's ice, ocean, and geology. These findings will help scientists better understand whether the conditions on Europa could make it a candidate for habitability. The spacecraft will now travel past Mars, using the planet's gravity to gain the velocity needed to reach Jupiter's moon Europa by 2030. The ISS is scheduled to retire, and there are many plans to replace it. Of course, some stations are showing positive signs while others are still struggling with delays. One of the stations that is progressing the best right now is the Vast Space Station, which, ironically, does not belong to the NASA program. It is currently scheduled to launch in September 2025, which means it has the earliest construction schedule of any commercial space station. And as we are at the end of 2024, this is the time to reveal its designs. Recently on X, Vast officially announced today Vast unveiled the final design for Haven 1, the world's first commercial space station, setting a new standard. Guided by visionary designer Peter Russell Clark and astronaut Andrew Fustel, we're pushing the boundaries of life in space with human-first design led by Hilary Koh. More interestingly, the company also outlined its plans for the Haven 2 station, describing how it will deploy the station in segments starting in the late 2020s. Haven 2 will start with a single module launched on a Falcon Heavy as soon as 2028. The module will be based on Haven 1, but will be 5 meters longer and have twice the usable volume as Haven 1, and also will have docking ports on each end. Vast then plans to launch 3 additional modules roughly 6 months apart in 2029 and 2030. The modules will be docked together in line. The modules will be effectively identical to one another, but outfitted with different lab facilities. The next phase of the station's development will involve the launch of a larger core module, 7 meters in diameter, on a SpaceX Starship in 2030. The 4 existing modules will undock from one another and attach to 4 separate ports on the new core module in a cross shape. There will be an additional docking port as well as a separate berthing port and robotic arm for visiting vehicles not able to autonomously dock. Along with the reveal, videos and images of the interior were also released. And wow! I can't believe this is the design of a space station. It literally looks like a house. In the videos and images, we see astronauts moving in an extremely modern and neat corridor, something that the ISS cannot have. The space station will also have an impressive window design, allowing for a view of the surrounding space. Next, we can see that astronauts can perform communication functions via wireless devices, and that is contributed by SpaceX's system, which I will talk about later. We can also see many systems and devices integrated and stored behind walls that look so simple. In addition, we can also see personal activities such as health monitoring, exercise, eating, and sleeping, which I think looks simple but extremely luxurious. Yeah, all the most important elements of life that we thought could not exist in space have appeared in the vast space station revelations. But that's just the overview. Now let's dive into the description provided by VAST. In its update, VAST confirmed that Haven 1, the first module of the VAST space station, represents a new standard that merges human-centric design with function, introducing features for unparalleled comfort, productivity, and microgravity lab advancements. VAST is confident that the company is a pioneer on the path to long-term living and thriving in space. VAST's inaugural station combines the functionality of its state-of-the-art facilities for scientific research, technological advancement, and global collaboration in low Earth orbit, LEO, with its remarkable dedication to sophisticated and human-centric design. In terms of design, VAST said the interior design of the space station will be warm and welcoming, making accessible spaces for everyone, with form and function merging to provide comfort and a higher quality of life for long-term missions. We'll go through each area of the station. The VAST space station is also designed to accommodate spacecraft, specifically the SpaceX Dragon. Once the spacecraft docks at the station's port, the crew will open the hatch to easily enter the station. Explaining in more detail the wall designs and integrated systems, VAST wrote, "A real-time display shows the station's status with temperature and lighting controls, and optimized cargo compartments ensure essential supplies are stored efficiently. Notably, Haven 1's interior surfaces are soft and padded to provide an added safety component for crew and visitors as they float throughout." Next, above and below the corridor, there are rooms called crew quarters, created to give astronauts a space to rest and recharge after work. These rooms are larger than those on the ISS, providing space for many activities like changing, entertaining, and communicating with family on the Earth. In this system, sleep is highly focused on because it is important for space exploration. To overcome the problems in environments that are different from the Earth, VAST designed a sleeping system that is roughly the size of a queen bed, provides a customized amount of equal pressure throughout the night, and accommodates side and back sleepers alike. In addition, each room will be installed with storage compartments, a dressing table, and a customized set of amenities. The center of the station will be the common area, which serves multiple functions such as scientific research, dining, exercise, and relaxation. This area will be 24 cubic meters in volume, including the dome-shaped glass window I mentioned earlier. It is described by VAST as a centralized window, allowing astronauts to experience a full view of Earth. The window is arched, measuring 1.1 meters. In the center of the room, there is a 0.9-square-meter deployable multi-use table span that can be used for the aforementioned activities and can be folded back into the floor when not in use. The exercise system has also been focused on because this is also an important factor when living in space. For example, VAST engineers created a resistance band system, which is considered effective for maintaining and improving muscle, bone, and cardiovascular health because it is capable of performing both linear and rotational resistance exercises. As you can see in the video, the station has some parts with the unique and prominent wooden design. This design uses fire-resistant maple wood veneer slats that have been genuinely tested for safety. This new design brings warmth and nature and also impacts mental health in the unique environment in space. Adjacent to this area is the lab, where microgravity research, development, and manufacturing will be carried out. VAST said that behind the walls there are 10 mid-deck locket equivalent, MLE, to store research products. The entire lab can be remotely controlled and monitored via SpaceX's Starlink internet system. This innovation will help enhance research efforts. The entire design of the VAST space station was created by designer Peter Russell Clark and astronaut Andrew Fustel. Russell Clark said, "Astronauts living in zero gravity pose unique design challenges. Creating an environment that is both highly efficient and naturally comforting leads to totally new results. Haven 1 interiors are unprecedented, precisely engineered, and sensitively designed to ensure its occupants thrive in space." Andrew Fustel shared, So much of our learning on ISS explores how living in microgravity affects the human body, both physically and psychologically. And one takeaway I've had is that intuitive design isn't a luxury in that regard. It's key to ensure astronauts can work and live in space seamlessly. To see Haven 1's design solve many of the challenges we faced aboard the ISS, and to use the progress we made there to ensure we can do this long-term caring while for ourselves is just extraordinary. Also, Jared Isaacman, commander of Polaris Dawn spacewalk mission, expressed under the tweet of Max Haut, CEO of VAST, "Congrats, Max, and to the @VAST team. Thanks for investing in and helping build a more exciting future. Eager to see Haven 1 launch." Yeah, what will appear in the first commercial space station is truly unbelievable. The VAST space station is really capable of replacing the ISS. I really look forward to its launch in the future. If you agree with me, please respond "Let's go" in the comments section. Then like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel to continue following SpaceX's development journey. And it's even more amazing because in such a great system, we see SpaceX's big contribution. Firstly, the VAST space station will be launched on Falcon 9 next year. More than any other vehicle, Falcon 9 is the most reliable vehicle right now to launch an important mission like the VAST space station. In fact, besides the VAST space station, Falcon 9 is also selected to launch Axiom Space Station, Starlab Space Station, and possibly Sierra Space's inflatable station, when this company seems to be looking to leave the Orbital Reef project. All three of these systems belong to NASA's program, and as mentioned, Dragon will be the vehicle to support the crew and cargo supply to the VAST space station. Right now, the Dragon is the main vehicle that helps NASA maintain operations on the ISS. Dragon's great achievement and reliability are helping it become the choice for all NASA and private missions, including the Polaris Dawn mission, commanded by Jared Isaacman. In response to Isaacman's congratulatory tweet, VAST said, "Thank you for everything you are doing to open the commercial crewed space era with SpaceX." And now they will be partnering with SpaceX and Dragon to further that era. SpaceX's next support was also shown in the mentioned description, Starlink. This combination was only announced by VAST this year, but has already made their space station potential significantly stronger, even better than the many commercial space stations under NASA's program. With this powerful internet system, communication barriers will be resolved. The results of the research will also be improved, helping us to further expand the frontiers of research and exploration. For SpaceX, they will be able to test the effectiveness of the Starlink system, thereby expanding it to many other systems, including the proposed space station developed by Starship. It is great to see efforts to improve life in space progress positively. With the genius minds, the first homes in space are being built. Space exploration will be expanded from there, and it is for everyone. We may have been worried about finding a system that can replace the ISS when this legendary station is in its final operating years, and perhaps the answer has been revealed: the VAST space station, with the support of SpaceX. Are you ready for the new era it brings? NASA is struggling with a big conundrum regarding Boeing's Starliner Calypso spacecraft. The International Space Station has just 6 years left before it is decommissioned. Meanwhile, Calypso, after 10 years of development, has not been eligible for being certified to fly 6 astronaut missions under the 2014 Commercial Crew Program. Of course, Boeing needs to complete all 6 of those missions to receive the full $4.2 billion contract value. The problem here is how to interleave 6 Boeing missions alongside the Dragon missions already booked for the remaining 6 years of the ISS. To make things more complicated, since the Starliner's crew flight test, NASA has not had any final answer for how best to achieve system certification. Should they proceed directly to the first operational Starliner flight, or Starliner 1, despite thruster problems and helium leaks with the spacecraft? Or should they need another test flight, which will cost Boeing more time and money? NASA's short term at present is to further delay Starliner 1 and continue to use SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. On its website, NASA has updated the 2025 Commercial Crew Plan, including NASA's SpaceX Crew 10 mission is targeting no earlier than February 2025. This timeline was previously for Starliner 1, But problems with the crew flight test mission delayed the mission from February to August 2025, moving up Crew 10 to February. This allows NASA and Boeing more time to review data from the CFT mission and make any changes to the spacecraft. Crew 11 in parallel with Starliner 1 for launch in that August 2025 slot, ensuring that there are no gaps in crew rotation to the ISS, just in case Starliner 1 slips into 2026. The Post added that the spacecraft's next flight dates will be released after crew flight test lessons are incorporated into the aircraft, and NASA approves its operational readiness. The timing and configuration of Starliner's next flight will be determined once a better understanding of Boeing's path to system certification is established. This determination will include considerations for incorporating crew flight test lessons learned, approvals of final certification products, and operational readiness. Meanwhile, NASA is keeping options on the table for how best to achieve system certification, including windows of opportunity for a potential Starliner flight in 2025. We have no idea how will everything end up, but clearly the forward path is very hazy. Because the uncrewed spacecraft had a successful landing in its return journey in early September, wrapping up 3 months stranded in space, perhaps NASA engineers can convince themselves Starliner is good to go for crew rotation flights and helium leaks. However, that doesn't mean it will be able to complete all 6 crew rotation missions to the ISS. In fact, only 3 out of 6 missions are placed a firm order for a deliverable by NASA. The national agency has previously said it awards these task orders about 2 to 3 years prior to a mission's launch. As a result, Calypso can only carry out a maximum of 3 missions during the remaining 6 years of the ISS. Of course, no way NASA will order more operational Starliner missions from Boeing beyond the 3 already on the books. And this is not just about time matter. Under the 2014 commercial crew contracts, NASA only pledged to buy at least 2 operational crew flights from each company and a maximum of 6. For Dragon's case, the space agency broke the rule a little bit as they extended SpaceX's commercial crew contract to cover as many as 14 Dragon missions with astronauts. It's compulsory due to the long-term delay on Starliner. Alternatively, NASA could decide to buy more Dragon missions and leave just a small portion for Starliner. We know that SpaceX and NASA are working to extend the lifespan of Crew Dragon from 5 to 15 missions. SpaceX is also building a 5th Crew Dragon right now, which is expected to come online next year. More Dragon missions, along with the handful of Starliner flights already on order, are enough to keep the ISS fully staffed through 2030 but still meet the goal of redundancy for crew transportation to the space station. Besides, if the troubled spacecraft can't fulfill the whole contract, NASA wouldn't have to pay the full $4.2 billion for Boeing. NASA awarded the company an initial $4.2 billion contract in 2014, and contract modifications since 2014 have added $400 million to the deal. So far, $2.7 billion has been paid out, while $1.9 billion remains to cover future service payments for operating flights. It remains unclear whether Boeing will receive the full remaining $1.9 billion, but we know that the company has reported a $1.6 billion loss on Starliner so far. This is certainly not good news for a company that is mired in scandal and heavy losses. This is why Boeing and other companies don't want fixed-price contracts anymore. On fixed-price contracts, it doesn't matter how much they spent on the project. NASA is going to pay them the same amount. Not to mention all their other problems, for example, laying off 17,000 employees or 10% of its global workforce just now. As the company explained, to align with our financial reality and to a more focused set of priorities. Workers probably hope it will not be the start of a trend, especially as the Starliner program is facing the risk of cancellation. It has no doubt that if the company cannot continue to make money from the program, then that will be the inevitable consequence. Not unexpected to see that NASA will continue to use Crew Dragon for the foreseeable future. But such a shame that Boeing hasn't been able to provide an alternate solution to get people to space. More ironically, they have to rely on their rival to meet the requirements for certification. This reminds us of their arrogant attitude in December 2017, when Boeing's former CEO, Dennis Muilenburg, who was fired just 2 years later, said that the first person who set foot on Mars would get there on a Boeing rocket, beating Elon Musk's SpaceX. Now let's see what happened 7 years later. In August, NASA announced that it would return the 2 astronauts who had gone to space via Boeing Starliner spacecraft, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, via a SpaceX vehicle in February 2025. The Starliner spacecraft would return to Earth autonomously in early September, the agency said, citing its commitment to safety. Williams and Wilmore launched into space on June 5th aboard Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. Though the 2 were supposed to return in about 8 days, technical issues identified with the spacecraft while docking delayed the return journey. And later the agency decided to scrap bringing the astronauts back on the Boeing spacecraft altogether. This move by NASA is not surprising because Boeing's Calypso has been famous for its incompetence in spaceflight. Can you imagine while SpaceX Dragon has flown 9 crewed missions so far, Boeing Starliner has not had any perfect test flight, not to mention being certified to ferry astronauts to the ISS? So why did a company that was once America's greatest end up so badly? Too many non-technical managers at Boeing. SpaceX's CEO Elon Musk pointed out the biggest weakness in Boeing's operation. In 2022, he has opined about non-technical managers. I strongly believe that all managers in a technical area must be technically excellent. Managers in software must write great software, or it's like being a cavalry captain who can't ride a horse. He has a point. A technical manager generally oversees the development, implementation, and maintenance of technological company systems and processes, including troubleshooting any potential issues. Non-technical managers, on the other hand, tend to be focused on broader aspects of a company like strategic planning, communication, and decision-making. Elon Musk, for example, when the rocket concept started to grow in his mind, learned a lot about the fundamentals of rocket design and astrodynamics from reading books, but he also learned an incredible amount from those he initially hired and worked with when he started SpaceX. Not to mention, he also has a strong background in physics and engineering, which provided him with a solid foundation for understanding the principles of rocketry. And now he recognized himself as chief engineer of SpaceX. Even SpaceX's board of directors, although come from many different fields, also have working experience with Tesla Motors, PayPal, computer services company Netscape, and Impulse Space Propulsion. His recruitment criteria are completely valid, as evidenced by the fact that, after roughly 20 years, a unicorn like SpaceX can surpass the giants backed by politicians to become a titan in the space industry as today. And that just about wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.